Can you put Dwight out of the room, actually?
Hi, welcome to our group behavior change presentation for 611. We did this presentation over decreasing excessive media usage while increasing physical activity. Our group members are Dana, Stacy, Brittany, Isabel, and Sarah. The first thing we're going to discuss today is going to be our supporting literature. And Dana will start us off.
My research article was a literature review that investigated whether interventions that emphasize decreasing sedentary behaviors in children and adolescents result in behavior change and weight control. A comprehensive literature search was conducted to identify all comparative studies of interventions to reduce sedentary behavior among children, alone or in combination with other health messages. 2 investigators evaluated articles for eligibility and validity. 12 studies met the inclusion criteria and provided relevant data. Approaches varied, but all reduced sedentary behavior and improved weight indexes. This suggests that emphasis on decreasing sedentary behaviors is an effective intervention to decrease sedentary behaviors and control weight in children and adolescents.
Okay, I reviewed the characteristics of screen media use associated with higher BMI in young adolescents. This study was over adolescents ages 12 to 19, and the main reason for this is that the presence of obesity has increased in the past decade, 3 decades, from 5% to 18%. And so we wanted to see why that was happening by observing the activities of these adolescents, seeing how much attention they're paying to television and to video games, and seeing how that correlates with their weight gain. And so we found that a study found that children and adolescents who pay more attention to TV are more likely to have an average BMI of 2.4 higher than those who actually do more physical activity. And this has been linked to such things such as increased food advertising that has the kids on more high-fat diets such as fast food, chips, snacks, cookies. Maybe they're doing more sedentary screen media such as playing video games, or they're having distracted eating where they're not realizing how many calories they're actually taking in.
So the empirical study that I chose looks at the link between antecedent variables relating to obesity in preschool children. Variables include socioeconomic status of families involved in the study, the perceived safety of people's homes and the areas they live in, outdoor playtime. They separated this into weekends and weekdays, and television viewing. So this study included over 3,000 families across 20 large US cities. The surveys were completed by the parents to report on the factors such as the perceived safety of the homes, playtime of the children, and the television viewing habits. The socioeconomic details were actually collected at the time of birth for the children by the hospitals and accessed later for the study. There was a positive link found between the outdoor playtime and perceived safety of the areas. However, there was no link found between the perceived safety and outdoor playtime for weekends and weekdays, so there was no difference in those. And there was no link between obesity and television viewing found in this study. However, the discussions did say that there was no link between the common environmental factors for obesity in older children, and this may not be because there needs to be several years of a sustained imbalance before those links are actually seen. So future research might actually look into different ideas such as perceived safety, and to be more specific in which factors would limit the outdoor playtime of different children. Television viewing is also not the only form of sedentary behaviour which could cause obesity, so future studies might sample a greater selection of activities. This also favoured large cities and unwed mothers, so future studies might include more diversity to determine any positive correlations between the environmental factors and obesity.
I examined was a literature review on obesity and overweight rates of 9-year-olds, and this was a self-report by the child's parents. and we took duration data on any screen time, which was any technology, cell phones, computers, video games, and also duration data on physical activity. And the results were that high rates of screen time resulted in a higher risk of obesity and overweight, and low physical activity put children at a higher rate of being obese or overweight. And the lowest rate of obesity and overweight children were in those who had low screen time and high physical activity.
The supporting article that I will be briefly discussing is a review of 20 different cross-sectional and observational studies that were about physical activity and sedentary behaviors of children ages 3 to 20 years old. The purpose of this article was to review the published prospective observational studies of the relationship of physical activity and sedentary behavior with the development of overweight and adiposity. Most of the studies under review relied on body mass index to reflect weight, status, or adiposity. A large number of the studies found that there was a positive correlation to increased television or video game time and being overweight. A study in Mexico found that for children ages 9 through 16, that with every additional hour of television per day, the odds ratio for prevalence of being overweight was 1.12, and in a study of Swiss children, each additional hour of video games played per day was associated with doubling the risk of obesity. The conclusion of this review was that there was a direct relationship between sedentary behavior and obesity, but in children, only found in children before they reached adolescence. The available evidence from prospective observational studies suggests that increased physical activity and decreased sedentary behavior are protective against relative weight and fatness gains over childhood and adolescence. Now we're going to go back to the original study that our group decided to replicate, which is decreasing excessive media usage while increasing physical activity, a single subject research by Karen and David Lorwin.
The purpose of this study was to promote a healthier lifestyle for the participant, which included having more physical activity and lowering her screen time on her cell phone and her computer.
The participant in the original study was a 14-year-old adolescent female who had been prescribed by both her physician and counselor to engage in increased levels of physical activity to deal with boredom and complaints about unhappiness regarding her level of physical fitness. The study took place in the participant's home. The Bowflex tread climber was chosen for use in the original study because it was already available in the home of the participant and suitable to provide a form of exercise that was not limited by weather conditions. It was used only as a treadmill because it had adjustable speed and resistance and was able to track distance and speed. A Tanita BC 533 InnerScan body composition monitor was also used. The participant was directed to record only the body mass composition measures to avoid unnecessary ideation about weight fluctuations, which the parents reported the adolescent participant was prone to do. Internet and cell phone availability were also needed for the study, as well as data sheets. For the original study, physical activity is defined as walking on the tread climber at a minimum of 1.2 miles per hour with the maximum speed not exceeding a speed at which the user cannot stand or talk without strain, and with the resistance level set to 7. Media usage is defined as non-school related internet and cell phone communication. Data collection was taken using data collection forms and used in baseline and treatment 1 and 2.
The baseline phase of the study lasted for 2 weeks, and phone and internet were both recorded during this time using minutes. The physical activity, was recorded using frequency, speed, and distance, with distance being in miles and speed being in miles per hour. The frequency was just the number of sessions that the 14-year-old engaged in each day or numbers of the week. And then every 3 days, her body mass composition was recorded. Before each session, the participant was required to engage in stretching prior to any kind of physical activity to avoid injury. So during this baseline data collection stage, the participant had to enter in her weight prior to starting and started at a speed of 1.2 with the resistance set at 7. She was able to increase the speed at her own leisure, but could not increase the speed to a rate that she could not stand without talking, without strain. The session was over when the participant decided that she no longer wanted to do it or that she was finished, and she never had to actually engage in a session if she did not feel like it. The participant also recorded her distance and time when she was finished with each session.
The intervention from the original study was presented in 2 phases. The first phase was to be conducted over 2 weeks, and the participant was to walk on the tread climber in order to gain access to non-school related internet time. For every mile walked on the tread climber, she received 1 hour of daily non-school related internet time. In addition, she could also earn 1 extra hour per night for every extra mile that she walked. The second treatment phase was to be conducted over 3 weeks. The participant was to engage in the same target behavior as phase 1, but the only difference was that the minimum required miles walked increased to 1.5 miles, and she would then earn 1.5 hours of non-school related internet or phone time. She could also earn a half hour of additional phone time, but not internet time for every extra half mile that she walked beyond the required 1.5 miles.
And the treatment phases for each phase and what the overall mileage was for her distance. You can see that during the baseline stage, she did not engage in any sessions, which was her prerogative. She was allowed to do that. During the first phase, you can see that she did engage in around an average of 1 mile. And then during the second treatment phase, it went up to more so between 1.5 to 2.5 miles. The same thing goes for the speed. If you see, obviously during the baseline, since she didn't walk at all, we cannot record any of her speed. During the first and the second phases, her speed seemed to stay pretty consistent throughout. Now, as you would expect, as her physical activity increased, you can see that her body mass composition decreased. So the more that she was engaging in physical activity in order to gain more access to her social media usage, she was able to decrease her body mass composition. And here you will see the actual averages of her daily usage of the non-homework related internet and phone usage. In the baseline, you can see that in both internet and phone, for each phase, it continued to decrease dramatically to where she was able to decrease those times to an average of 10 and 31 minutes.
For the inter-observer agreement, they used the child's parents and a research assistant. So the parent was also called a coach, and it was their job to monitor the child's compliance to the treatment program and all the requirements of the intervention. So this included collecting data and whether she was successful in meeting the target behaviour or not. They also provided the reinforcement if the target behaviour was met. So that's the phone or internet time. The research assistant was also responsible for implementing the treatment with the parents and overseeing the child's data collection. So they did this by checking in at least 3 times a week with both the child and the parent separately to verify if the specific reinforcements were delivered or denied. So this was a single subject design where the participants self-monitored the target behaviour. The parent coach, again, monitored the participants' adherence to the program requirements and data recording, and responsible for the consequences. The research assistant communicated with the participant independently at least 3 times a week, and this strategy was employed based on the reasoning that increasing accountability for the project activities would increase the likelihood that the participant would follow the project activities through faithfully.
For the replication portion of our study, everyone from our group participated, and this included Dana, Stacy, Sarah, Brittany, and Isabel. It took place in the participants' homes and gyms. The materials needed for replication included a tread climber or treadmill at the participant's home or gym that had adjustable speed and resistance and that tracked distance and speed. The internet, a cell phone, and data collection sheets were also needed. For the replication study, physical activities defined as walking on the tread climber at a minimum of 1.2 miles per hour with the maximum speed not exceeding a speed at which the user cannot stand and talk without strain and with a resistance level set to 7. Media usage is defined as non-related internet and cell phone communication. Data collection was taken using data collection forms and were used in baseline and treatment 1 and 2.
So if you look here, you can see the data collection forms that we used. We made this using the Excel spreadsheets. That way we had some consistency throughout each participant, and we were able to include the phone and internet usage in minutes and then our distance and speed for every day of the study. If you notice that we, since we didn't have the body mass composition calculator, we left that off of the data collection forms. During the baseline phase, we adhered to the same rules as the original study in that we were not required to engage in sessions if we did not want to. However, we did have to record internet and phone usage in minutes. We also, if we did engage in physical activity, use the same increments as frequency, speed, and distance to record our data. Each participant had to engage in stretching prior to the physical activity, and we each used the treadmill or treadmill climb or incline road in order to get our walking done in all of our miles, starting at a 1.2 miles per hour with a resistance of 7. As with the original study, we were able to increase the speed at our own discretion as long as we were not increasing a speed to which we could not have conversations without strain. The sessions were over when we decided that we had walked far enough or we were just tired and not interested in walking any longer. And then we all recorded the data after each session was over.
For our replication of the study, treatment phase 1 was constrained to 1 week because we didn't have enough time. For our intervention phase, we did not, we used, like Stacy said, a treadmill, a tread climber, or an incline road. The target behavior was to walk 1 mile on any of those platforms, and each mile was reinforced with 1 hour of non-school or work-related internet or phone time. And we, just like the original study, could earn additional hours for every extra mile that we walked. For phase 2, that was also condensed to 1 week due to time constraints. We were engaging in the same target behavior, which is walking on a treadmill, a tread climber, or an inclined road. The only difference was that the minimum miles to be walked was increased to 1.5 miles, and the reinforcer of non-school or work-related internet or phone time was also increased to 1.5 hours. We could also earn 0.5 hours of additional phone time, but not internet time, for every half mile that we walked. And as you can see, these are line graphs of the results from our data. This is distance in miles for each member that walked. So as you can see, with each treatment phase, they all increase or stay pretty consistent as the treatment phase went on. And these are the results of the speed. Again, just like the distance, the speed either increased or stayed consistent as each intervention phase progressed. This is the results of the media usage. As you can see, from the baseline data to the treatment phase, everyone's usage for both internet and phone decreased significantly. Yeah.
For the replication study, we, the participants, were the IOA. We were in charge of implementing the treatment and providing reinforcement if we were successful and the target behavior was met, and we were also in charge of collecting the data.
With regards to the treatment integrity and limitations for the study, there were no coaches or research assistants to monitor the implementation or collection of data. There was, however, some group accountability as the data was to be collected and shared by set dates. The treatment phases were shorter than the original study due to time constraints. So we had 1 week for baseline, 1 week for the treatment 1, and 1 week for treatment 2. And not all participants had access to a treadmill and had to use a natural incline walking and GPS tracking to determine distance and average speeds. This group did not monitor changes in the body mass composition as there was no access to the equipment necessary to accurately track this, which was the inner scanner body composition monitor. Also, deprivation of technology was adapted as it was not possible for all to remove all technology due to work and study commitments of the participants. Therefore, the technology reinforcements were given for non-work or study-related purposes.
All goals were met during the original study. The participant was able to increase her activity level while lowering her daily usage of phone and internet. In the study replication, not all participants increased their activity level consistently from baseline, but all participants significantly lowered their daily usage of phone and internet. If access to various types of media are included in exercise contingency plans, results will continue to be promising, and this merits further investigation. Thank you for watching. That concludes our presentation. The following slides include our references and contributions.